Had to do that for fun. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Learning to Escape. And I'm here for a couple reasons. First of all, I owe all of y'all a big I'm sorry. And I'm sorry for all the AI slop that you've seen lately. I fell. I fell hard into a rabbit hole. They're sneaky little bastards, and I fell right in their holes. And it felt good. Those little AI videos, it was so easy. I mean, I went to school for audio, little bit of video engineering. You couldn't do anything like that without working hours and hours and hours and days and days and days and days. Now I can just little prompts, little here's what you say. Wow, make me big muscles. It was so cool. And I got a little carried away. And for that, I apologize. So for all you haters out there that wrote me about AI slop, this is stupid. Hey, I agree. But it was fun. And I did make some good ones, but yeah, there's a lot of crap. So anyway, that's gone. That's done. So under the bridge, I said my apologies. Next, I thought I would do something a little different and answer some of the other things that was written to me, like questions, things like things that I'm hoping to be asked, because why on earth have I been doing this now? From, gosh, I switched around 2022 to be electric, and then, 2021, 2020 really was my first electric weed trimmer, the Atlas, and then push mower, chainsaw, all awesome from Atlas. Then tried some Ryobi crap. Sorry, Ryobi, but at that time it was crap. And I mean, I had all your drills and all that stuff too. You know, there was my lower stuff that I could use all day for crews and stuff to build decks, you know, things like that. But then I had my good tools, my skill tools, things like that, that were mine. But as far as dependability, knowing the batteries are going to last without having to get a paper clip and shock them back into place, kind of like, sorry, didn't mean to do that. But you know, I went through tons of different ones to find the best, then started discovering Ego. And by 2022, we were set with all electric, and it was glorious. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. You know, the question, and to be honest with you, the first question, the pros and cons of having a landscape business, there's several. The pros, you know, you get immediate results. You know, you can go and make something that looks to a random customer like, oh my God, this is going to take years to look better. What do I do? It's going to cost me a fortune. And then you come in with a crew and knock it out in a few hours, and it looks night and day difference. And then that customer comes to you almost in tears, just like, thank you. That's a really cool feeling. Really, really cool feeling. And have customers, you know, coming to you, you know, like now with, you know, our electric stuff, you know, completely different. Like, oh my God, you're so quiet. Thank you. But that's a lot of other stuff that we'll get into later. But mainly this is just about landscaping. That's what the question is. So I'll stick to that. Working outdoors. I love working outdoors. I love the ability to be able to stay in shape without having to go to a gym and do the same repetition over and over and over. Because trust me, of course, had all those days. But I try to turn my daily routines into exercises. Kind of like I encourage the guys to do, you know, when you're trimming, sometimes switch it up. You know, we have left-handed trimmers, we have right-handed trimmers. Switch it up some. Or hold things differently with your backpack blowers. Use a different type. Million different ways you can do it. Turn it into exercise that actually doesn't fatigue or doesn't just build these certain muscles, some of which you never even knew you had, but can really make you feel absolutely amazing. by the time you're done with the day, you're ready to just get out and have a blast, have fun, full energy. Where before, when again, I'm getting back into the gas stuff, being so heavy, the smell, all that stuff, you just be exhausted. The heat radiating off these machines, they kind of wear you out. And so I love just the organic workout I get from it. Again, I'm sorry. I keep going back and forth from the gas and electric, and I'm just going to do that, and you're just going to have to get used to it. Okay. Sorry. Love you. I needed something that was going to keep me stationary, going to keep me here as my child was growing up. So I wanted a job that was local. Landscaping's very local. So that's another pro. Try to think of some cons here. But one of the, well, it's still another pro. In other jobs, that I'd worked, I had worked for some real power tripping bosses that I swore I'd never be or work for. And so working for yourself is pretty freaking awesome. Or working as like a leader of crews, if you can't have your own business, working for a company that can let you lead, can say, hey, you got this. Go handle these guys. And it's handle these guys and just inform them what to do. You, of course, overcheck to make sure they're doing it as the expectations of the owner of the company would want them done. But if you got good people, you should have no problem with that. So all it is just doing what they do and then kind of going after them, making sure everything is right. And it's not hard. It's not hard at all. The cons, allergies, heat. Sometimes you get some impossible customers, but that's with any business, In the restaurant business, oh my gosh, give me a break. Any kind of customer service business, you're going to have that. But most of my cons fall within the gas part of landscaping. So, with that being said, I also want to mention that I am in no way against gas. I was raised by one grandfather that was amazing war veteran, 2 wars, and worked for Phillips 66. I mean, he was in Oklahoma. That I don't even know if you can get more oil, gas, in your blood than that. I come from that. That's what put food on the table. And I love it for that. And my whole reason is not switching away from it because I think so horrible of it. It is great for the time that it's had and is still having, but we have developed into more efficient options out there, just like we do with everything. Just like we're with your daggum vacuum cleaners that now run battery powered, to clean your house for you, or a million other machines that are out there doing things for you with batteries that save so much money through efficiency. The same thing with the landscaping. So I guess on the cons, I'll just leave that as is. There's not many anymore, but there were before. And we can go into those because I'm sure there's more questions about that. So the next question I have here is how long electric solar? Okay. So it's kind of in 3 parts because I was started with gas in 2014 and then brought in my first electric trimmer and then chainsaw and then push mower. This is all around the 2021 mark. And then 2022 is when I finally got all the solar into it because I was trying to figure out how to power these battery chargers because that was the only thing that I was missing. Wonderful equipment I was using, batteries that were great, but then do I got to drive back home and recharge them? Or do I got to buy a whole bunch of these batteries because they're so freaking expensive? Or do I use an alternate powering method, which I've learned through another small little job that I had of making these little solar light harnesses that had little bitty AA batteries in them, and they made lights for flags on flagpoles. And it was just a short time that I was there, but I learned how that worked, and it amazed me. And I knew how to solder, so I was like, okay, cool, I can make these. And then I tried to think that into a bigger scale, and made this bass boat that I converted into a solar boat by using 2 of the big panels that I got from there, and hooked all these trolling motors up to it, and was able to make it to where I could have this whole bass boat go pretty much, like a bass boat. I mean, not crazy high speeds, but 30, 35 miles an hour, which is pretty stupid fast for trolling motors. But I had 4 of them on the top, and then 2 other like turbo that I'd flip on. And it's really cool. It was really fun. But then I was looking at that boat that's just sitting there going, why not put that technology into this trailer and be able to generate the power to charge all these batteries? So, lo and behold, trial and error, and a zillion YouTube videos later of watching people with RVs and different things like that, using solar for all sorts of different things, but learning exactly how much voltage is coming through each panel, how to measure what voltage is actually coming out of the panel, going into the batteries, into charge controllers, all the different aspects of it. Because it can get really confusing. And that's why, of course, we try to offer courses and things like that teach people so that you don't have to go through all this like I did. But, after all of it, it's stuff that, I'll never forget, because, I love learning, especially when it's something that can help you make so much money, and not so much money, so much more money than you were making before doing the same exact thing, but easier, which is crazy. It doesn't make sense. That doesn't seem to add up. It's like doing the same job I was doing, but now in less time, easier, and making more money. But that's really how it works, because, again, you're efficient. You don't have the cost you had. But once again, I'll get into that more, because I love to ramble, and I'll keep rambling on these questions, and I'm sure that I'll probably hit another question that is asked next. So the next question is, here we go. Why electric? What makes it better? What makes it more efficient? So glad you asked. All right. What makes it better? The ease of use. Okay, so let's give you a little example. I go out. No, better yet, one of my employees go out, and they're going to start the blower up and blow out the trailer. They got the BR600, pump, 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 pump on the little primer bulb. Boom, 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 pump, 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 pump on the primer bulb. Boom, boom. Oh, the switch is off. On. Boom. Oh, it's flooded. Now what? Just keep pulling it. Pull, pull, pull. Next thing you know, string breaks. Recoil. Okay, that blower's down. Next blower. Boom, boom. Okay, got it started. Go out, start running it. Didn't check the gas and oil first. Run it for a little bit, then it's out. Then go back, fill it with the gas and oil, try to start it, have problems. Could have been the gas and oil mix that you just put in was not mixed right, or whatever was in there before was not mixed right. Either way, you probably have something clogged in the carburetor, or just a bad mix. Therefore, you've got to adjust valves. There's so many different things. Or you can hire your mechanic and have your mechanic come and fix all this stuff and charge you butt nuggets an hour and say, oh yeah, I cleaned the carbs, boss. And after the first, couple weeks, you learn that he's not taking these carbs apart anymore. He's spraying the magic fluid that says carburetor clean. It's spray that makes it work for a minute. It's like spraying starter fluid in something to get it to fire up. You're still not fixing the problem of why the thing's not firing. So all of that added up, of course, just almost made it miserable to do landscaping, and that's not what it's about. Landscaping, honestly, is to be enjoyed. If you're a homeowner or if you're working for it, it's being out with nature. It's working with nature, and it's wonderful. And it got to the point where everyone was just in a bad mood, cursing at it, hating it, stinking like gas, of course, because they're having to remix stuff. They're having to keep repulling stuff, so they're all hurting and complaining about that. And it just got overwhelming. So, why electric? Again, ease of use, no maintenance. No maintenance. If it breaks, it's under warranty. Just go get another one. Dependability. Pull the trigger, it turns on. Let go of the trigger, it turns off. It's almost like magic. Hit boost and it gets even stronger. The chainsaws. I almost cut my leg off with a chainsaw once, but thank God it was electric, because guess what? When the chainsaw cut through that hard root and came and hit my leg, it shut off. I didn't have to hit the kickback. I didn't have to do anything. It shut off because my finger was no longer on the trigger. Wow. What an amazing concept. Thank you, Lucy. Another reason, of course, like I've said, the overhead. Way less overhead. You're not buying all these additives. You're not paying for the maintenance. All that junk. The smell. There's another big one. Get home from a day of landscaping with, regular traditional equipment. You stink. And not just the BO. You smell like gas. You smell like oil. I've had the ladies tell me, which have been my ex-wife and my daughter, no hugs, Dad. I'm good. You stink. And the heat, too. It'd already be hot outside, but the heat that radiates from the mufflers, it's intense, and it makes it so much harder. And while we're talking about mufflers, you just happen to accidentally, ow, that hurt. Oh, that's going to hurt for a few days. Now I got a big whelp because of a crazy hot spot. There's all these little things you don't think about. Spark plugs. There's so many things. They just don't exist anymore. Anything that's on these electric machines, especially if you go with a name brand, like a good name brand, and a commercial, like Ego has commercial, to where you just, if it goes out, make the call, they'll troubleshoot stuff with you. And the cool thing is with all these being able to hook up to Bluetooth, you can look and see exactly what's going on with your machine. Maybe fix it there. If not, know how to troubleshoot, know how to reset, do whatever, or replace it out. And I've had, some of the big mowers at the first beginning when they were first coming out that, they had some glitches, and I needed to return it, get another one, and pretty much immediately I was able to get another one. And it's unreal. It didn't cost the hundreds and hundreds. And not to mention, when you put your mower in the shop and you have, an outfit that needs that mower all the time, and you go take it to Ace Hardware or any other, local, tractor fixing place, it could be weeks, it could be months until you get that thing back. It could be weeks until they even look at it. And then again, your other option is to hire a mechanic to come and trust that he's going to do good work. There's a lot of good mechanics out there. So many. Also a lot of bad ones. They'll start out good. I've known so many. But then they get lazy. And I won't get into that too much. That's, the cross to bear. But I just like to try to do what's right and be who I say I'm going to be, So, and then of course, there's no impact on the environment. And that environment is not only the air you breathe, what you smell, but also the pollution of noise. And that's something a lot don't think about. They think of air pollution. But what about noise pollution? What about the deafening sounds? Because being in the music business, when you're getting up into the 80 decibels and above, you're starting to cause deafness. and whether it's to the operator, and the operator could have Bluetooth in his ears jamming out to music, but he's got it on volume 11 because that's the only way he can hear it. So is that really protecting him from the loud sound of the blower, or is that harming him more? Where, just for instance, the guys using the blowers now, I will walk around and see one of my guys talking on the phone in his Bluetooth while he's blowing, while he's mowing, while he's doing everything else. And finally I had to ask him, like, how do these people hear you? He's like, dude, they said they didn't hear me just fine. The noise cancellation, I guess, works great because it's just such a, I guess, low frequency. And then I start testing it, and the same thing. It's crazy. So, I mean, yeah, you can hear a little noise, but people in their houses, they hear nothing. Even people on the phone. Not saying to go get on the phone when you're out landscaping, especially when you're not your own boss. Not cool. But, if you can still do your job, cool. But you can still listen to music. You can listen to podcasts. Some of the guys are raving about how they can listen to podcasts now. They could never do that before. They could only listen to loud music and barely hear it, but at least have something to try and help the day kind of smooth. Because if you're a landscaper and you're doing stuff like this, you'd like to have a rhythm. And, if it's podcast, maybe it's something that's just kind of taking you into a different place that you want to learn about, hear about. Or music takes you into another memory or just a good feeling. And you can really enjoy that now by being able to hear it. And if a customer walks up to you and they have a question, have anything to say, even a thank you, all you have to do is let go of the trigger and say, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. How can I help? So easy. And they love it. I mean, they eat it up because communication is key, like a lot say, but I find so many customers say that I can't approach my landscapers. I feel like I'm disturbing them because it takes so much. They have to stop the engine, put the thing down, talk to me, and then go through all this trouble to get the machine started again. I just feel like I'm such a hassle. Not anymore. So there's another reason of what makes it so much better, so much easier. So broaden your scope when you're looking at this of the differences and the benefits. It's not just because, it's a lighter, quieter power tool that's maybe as strong. No. It's just as strong, but it's next to silent on some of them. And again, it's push a button and it starts. Let go of it, it stops. It's so simple. So that was a very long version of number one. My God, are we ever going to get through these questions? Number two. Oh, I already did that. Ha, just kidding. So, yes. Gas 2014, electric, 2020, solar 2022. It was fully done by the very beginning of 2023. Where I talked about, why electric. Okay, so here's one. Oh, I like this one. Any work experience before landscaping? No, that's it. I cut grass with scissors. Oh, back in high school and college, I lived in Florida, and I worked as my very first job was cutting grass, in Oklahoma as a little kid, just trying to make a little extra money, picking up trash around the neighborhood and stuff like that to go buy our naughty favors. And then high school and college, my first job was Publix bag boy. I'm sure y'all probably, if not, check out some of our stories on here. I had bought a Harley with some insurance money and realized, hey, I guess I got to have a job still to pay for this Harley and a place to live and all that stuff. Not the smartest, but it worked out. But Subway, U-Haul, I was a studio engineer apprentice for a little bit as I was going to school for that. My big goal was to be a rock star, but if not a rock star, at least record them, run sound for them, be somewhere in that arena was my goal. But I wanted to go through, all the things to get there. And of course, it didn't start with stardom. So from Florida, then I moved to Georgia in the late 90s. And I was a studio engineer at the Strand in Marietta Square and the Pterodactyl Club, which is where we moved to after a while. And still, we had a studio in there. We recorded a ton of, really, really cool bands. A band by the name of Third Day was really getting big at that time. And they recorded, some of the studios that we were at, and then some of the owners with the club had a record label that had them on it. And it's just a really, really cool experience. And from that, became manager of the two concert venues. And then kind of went back and forth from, the studio stuff and then the club scene. That's when the rave scene started getting big. And we were getting from very cool music, a lot of really fun music, but the numbers of people just weren't coming in, like they were years past, and people were getting more into the dance stuff. And then you had DJs that would come in, and let's say a band, would charge $5 a head. They'd have like 300 people, 400 people. Then, at Pterodactyl, and then at the Strand, you still have the same, but then 300 people in the Strand looked bare. But then you'd have a DJ come in, and they bring 3,000 people at $30 a head. And these are people like Sasha, Doc Martin, Diggaweed, stuff like that. They were just insane. I didn't know them for people at the time from nothing. I just knew, my God, these people must be magical. And people came out of the woodworks to the Strand. And the place would be packed, absolutely packed. I was like, this is crazy. So I bought myself some big ass Jinko jeans and bleached my blonde hair and said, hey, I guess no longer a musician, I'm a raver now with my glow sticks. And that didn't last too long. It was fun, but it also was scary. It was before, fentanyl and all that stuff was coming around, but there was still a lot of bad things getting mixed into these party drugs that people were taking. And I don't want to get too much into all that because this is, again, stuff for another podcast. But I saw a lot of bad things happening. And I said, I think it's wise to kind of, get out of this club stuff, get back into my studio stuff. So then I started working with Green Onion recording studios down in Little Five Points. And Cedric the Entertainer and Def Jam, was starting up down there. And so we had, a lot of big people coming and going, and a lot of, different smaller groups that, became big later on, but starting out. And I was really getting to meet a lot of these people in their very beginnings. And a lot of rap artists, a lot of R&B, it was real broad. And it was really cool because I learned so much about engineering. But the bad part is, again, there was a lot of crime that was getting involved, a lot of shady stuff happening. And something inside me, probably God, said, hey, I think it's time. I think it's time to go. I think it's time to, find a new surrounding. And so I said, no, I'm going to put a stop to this music career and journey somewhere. I don't know where. I called my brother and I said, hey, I just want to get out of here, somewhere different, start over. He says, I was based in Key West for a little while. Go try that out. Heard it was cool. So moved to Key West and became a server first at a place called Mangoes, and then a bartender at a place called Mobster Lobster, which was really cool. and they had a side Mexican, but they had Lobster, which had all the seafood stuff, and then Tijuana Joe's, not the Tijuana Joe's that's out there now. This is Tijuana Joe's, authentic Mexican, like sidebar. And it was awesome. It was so much fun. And then took a break, got married, went on honeymoon, came back to Key West, and lo and behold, both places were shut down. Luckily, I had someone that would come into my bar all the time that was a manager over at the Hilton at where the Sunset, it's called Sunset Deck, but it was Hilton Key West where it would come down. And he offered me a job there. And so I came and bartended there, and that was amazing. Bartended sometimes it'd be just from like 6 to 9, just as the sunset, and you would get crazy packed. And this band called the Island Boys would sit there and play all these great songs, Piano Man and Sultans of Swing, all these awesome things. I mean, it was glorious. It was great. And then 9/11 happened. It was a ghost town. The only people that were still there were the people that were stranded there. No one could leave. All the flights were stopped. Couldn't go anywhere. So, we waited it out. Once things were lifted, everyone's kind of broke. It's like, well, we want to have a kid, and this is probably not the best environment. Let's go back up where, her family lives. And my family did too at the time. And let's move back up there and let's try this kid thing. So we did it, and we moved back up to Georgia. And we had brought my cousin along. He had came down and stayed with us in Key West for a little while. Then he came back up to Georgia, and he got a job at this restaurant. And then shortly said, hey, these people are trying to sell the business, but it's a really cool restaurant, and it's right in the middle of downtown Woodstock. I was like, all right, let's go check it out. And we go check it out, and it really is a very, very cool restaurant. They just did, like lunch buffets, but it was just kind of like, hometown, but it's an old historic house. It's called the 1904 house. And I just fell in love with it. And they'd only been open for a few months. And I believe a previous, like the people that owned the building had it opened years before and didn't close down. Then those people had it and they were selling it. Well, we got it, and we changed it into more of kind of like what we saw down in the Keys and just things that we liked. So we did live jazz on Friday, Saturday night, live music for brunch, a Sunday brunch. And then all of a sudden a dinner theater company came and wanted to start doing dinner theaters. So we started doing that on certain nights. I mean, really, really cool. And we also, with this came a few clubs that we got to host, like Kiwanis Club, Lions Club. And then all of a sudden, all these other ones started, hitting us up and seeing that, our food was good and our atmosphere was good. Next thing you know, we had from Lions, Kiwanis, Rotary, both the Democrat and Republican parties. And what's funny, when they would ask me, so who are you for? I said, both your money's green. That's all I'll say. Because I'm not going to sit there and put my business into the mix of politics when I don't really believe politicians. I try, and I do have my beliefs. I don't expect anyone else to have to believe the same way, because I try to do as much studying as I can for my beliefs. I will share them with ones who actually want to hear it, but I don't demand them on others. And I don't know. I guess that's what helped me get along with a lot of these people, and they not ask another question. And it was really cool. It was a really cool adventure. But then they started having these meetings about how they were going to expand the downtown area into this massive multi-level, like where you have stores on the bottom and then, apartments on top, kind of like in all the big cities and stuff like that. And it was a great idea, but they were going to close the roads. There was no Uber Eats. There was no Grubhub, none of that stuff. It's just, I didn't know how we would survive. I mean, we were even offering delivery to, people just right around us. But if we couldn't get out onto the roads to deliver it, how do we make that happen? So, we couldn't survive that. So we went to, basically mainly catering because, they're at the restaurant, in 1 year alone, we did over 100 weddings, which is insane on top of all the other stuff we were doing. So the catering was way too big to just let it go. And so we got a banquet hall called Latimer Hall and started doing all these events out of there. And that went great. It was going really well. Went well for first year. But then the next year, the pastor, and I'm not sure how you know how Methodist church work, but unlike Baptist, like I was growing up where, you have a preacher comes in, the congregation gives a thumbs up, thumbs down pretty much, or crucify him. But the Methodists have a different way. And someone else, picks that person. Well, the person they picked was not a good fit. And the church split. And that person they picked had a chip on his shoulder. And that chip apparently was named me. And he didn't like that we were there making money off the church, even though we were paying the church for using the facility that they weren't using before we came in. But I wasn't about to go tick off a church. It's like, hey, if that's the way, you want to handle this, then hey, we'll just part ways. It's okay. And we did. And so, moved out of the catering stuff. At that point, I mean, I was pretty over catering business, restaurant business. I mean, I learned to become a chef by a bunch of books real quick when starting the restaurant. I already learned to cook because I was blessed with an amazing mom and amazing grandparents that taught me, how to cook, how to grow up and be a man. I, moved out at a very young age, had to learn to, fend for myself. Can't eat out all the time. Got to eat more than ramen noodles. So it's ramen noodles and what? So many amazing meals you can make with that. But, I had to explore beyond that and make some amazing steaks, seafood. But this was also stuff that I was learning when I was in Key West because I also worked for the catering department there. And I was always fascinated with the food because I loved cooking. So I'm so glad that I soaked so much in because I was able to implement it into what I was doing there at the restaurant. And I mean, we won all sorts of awards. And it was kind of embarrassing to say, hey, I never went to chef school, but I do have the books. I did read them. But either way, I mean, it was just, it was an amazing experience. Very humbling because you have to take criticism and you can't just always get mad. And yes, there's some people that will sit there and tell you this the worst tasting stuff I've ever had. Why they eat it all and everyone else at their table is just wiping their mouths out. It was so good. But, they have to make a scene. They have to be better. But, and again, that's why I encourage everyone who has kids to get them in some kind of service industry before they let them loose on the world, because it teaches humility and it teaches patience, but it also teaches you when it's right to stand up for yourself. And owning a restaurant, I maybe overstepped that one a couple of times when people thought that they could really get one over on me, and I won't go much further into that one either. Without it, we'll do it for another podcast. So hey, leave a comment, something. I mean, that's what all this is for, is, what do you want to hear? And anyway, it was a wonderful experience, but I was really getting burnt out. And so looking for something a little different. And I found this little ad that was for looking for someone to come work on solar lights and flags. It seemed kind of weird, but it was close to my house. So I went and checked it out. And it was making these little solar-powered flag lights that go on top of flagpoles that keep them lit all night long. So that way, you don't have to bring your flag in at night. You can keep it up and it keeps it lit. And I learned so much in such a little time that I absolutely loved it. But then I had gotten sick was something that I had to go to the doctor. It's just for about a week, week and a half. And when I came back, I found out that apparently, since I told one owner that I was not feeling well and had to leave, and then called them back from the hospital, that the other owner was upset that I didn't call them. And so they fired me. They were elderly, and I guess one got a little jealous. I'm not sure. But again, Lord works in mysterious ways, because that was definitely not the job I was meant to stay at forever. Just like the next one. And at this time, I'm like, okay, God, why on earth did I just go learn solar panel lights for flagpoles? What am I going to do with that? And then all of a sudden, I get asked, my mom has a friend that from an apartment complex. Mom used to run some apartment complexes, managed them. And she had said, hey, they're looking for a front desk person. If I wanted something, for the time being, till I found, where I wanted to pursue, my new career, whatever. I was still kind of just like, okay, what am I doing? But I wanted to stay somewhere local because, oh yeah, my wife at the time, had got pregnant and we had a baby. And so here we are with this newborn baby. I'm not about to go traveling places. I want to stay here. So I I sit there and I go to the interview, and I meet with this woman, and she's super awesome. And she's like, great. Can you start, right now? I was like, sure, you got it. And so I get up to the front desk, and this is a spine clinic. I know nothing of medical other than I was in a real bad car wreck when I was 15, and I like broke every bone, was in a body cast. I was in traction, all this stuff, but didn't know much about anything else medical as far as how it's supposed to be done through OSHA and HIPAA rules. So I, just, hey, being friendly, people say, how you doing? Made the patients happy, feel comfortable when they're getting, or like, where's the doctor? Helped them calm down, you know, drugged them with a Xanax here and there. No, just kidding. But, it was cool. I like it. First day, what happened? Then all of a sudden, here comes this guy in scrubs. And he goes, who are you? I was like, oh, well, sir, I'm Mike. He goes, it's doctor. I was like, hello, doctor, I'm Mike. He goes, okay. And then he goes back to the back and he calls the manager to the back. And then all of a sudden I hear, that was him yelling in another room. And I was like, that's not good. All the nurses are looking at me, and they're still looking at me like, who is this guy? Why is he here? They're making him something above me. I've been working too hard for too long. Like, I could feel the hatred. But I just tried to be myself and just be like, hey, so I know nothing of this stuff. I'm just here to be the low person on the totem pole, but I will help you all out any way possible. Just tell me what to do. And they didn't expect to hear that. They expected me to hear, let me tell you what to do. And there's a little lesson in life, go in with humility. So she comes back out and she is bawling and she's yelling, Mike, leave. This guy's a fraud. He's going to get rid of you just like he did me. Leave, leave. And I'm just looking around like, okay, first of all, I don't really know this woman. She was just someone that my mom knew as, a tenant. Didn't know her really personally. It was just, figured, the hand of God, handing her something to hand to my mom, to hand to me to say, hey, here's a little something to get you through the time you need. But still, something told me, you're not here for the long haul. And I didn't know why, because I thought maybe now I'm going to start learning to be a doctor at 30. So he asked me to come back. He goes, so, Mike, I just fired her. I was like, Okay. Because you want to know why I fired her? Like, if you want to share, because she hired you. It kind of took me by surprise. I was like, do I say thanks? I'm confused. She says, well, she didn't ask me. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought y'all were hiring. I was like, oh, we were. But she's supposed to bring all things through me first. I was like, oh, okay, I understand that. I was like, well, let me tell you my background. So we sit there and we rapped for a bit. By the end of the day, I mean, we were cool the next day. And then, for the first week and a half, great. And then he started giving me more and more duties that, I didn't know how to do, as far as computer. No, I mean, I know how to use a computer, but I'm saying these programs that you got to use for, health, WellStars things and Northside and all that stuff. And just checking people in, checking all their vitals, going through this stuff, which was fun, but I was mainly, assisting the other nurses, learning how they do it, see how they're doing it, and, being the other person there. Then it started turning into, hey, you take these staples out of this person? And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. What are you talking about? And that's a whole nother story for another thing. But just pushing these boundaries that didn't feel right. And also noticed things that, when he would come in, his moods would be, I mean, night and day difference. We already knew that he was cheating on his wife with another like personal assistant person. There was just a lot of just things that were just really shady. And I'm thinking, okay, this is crazy, but hey, what do I do? What do I know? I don't, maybe he's just a fantastic doctor. But then I'm talking to the patients, and every patient seems to be, there's a few that are, oh, so much better, so much better. But there's a few, I don't know, there's a majority that are, I feel so much worse. Or, this is my third surgery, and this is what's happening. All this stuff. And then I've got other nurses coming to me saying, that person should have never had surgery. Oh, you heard about that person's sister that died on his table, or and of pneumonia for being left on the table for too long after surgery. The billing coding person coming to me and saying, hey, he is billing 5 times Medicare on some of the stuff that he's not supposed to. Like all this stuff that was, I mean, like Hebrew to me. But, they were explaining in my layman's terms to say, hey, okay, here's your dumbed down version. He's a fraud. He knows what he's doing, but he is doing things wrong on purpose. But if we try to tell anybody, we'll never work in the medical field again. I said, well, guess what? I have no interest to work in the medical field again. I didn't come in here to become, oh yeah, forgot to mention, after the couple of months, he made me the manager of all 5 spine clinics all over this part of Georgia. 5 spine clinics, manager, no medical history. Just a sparkling personality, and didn't mind asking, the other nurses for help. And luckily they turned from hating me to loving me because I didn't try to act better than them. Didn't try to be better than them, which is what I try to still do today with all my employees. Just, you work as a team. But now this work as a team was to not only try and help these patients, but really try and help them get the hell away from this guy and figure out why doctors are saying do not perform surgery on this person. I do not recommend this person being on this medication. And the dictations and everything from the person who's translating everything this person's saying, she's calling me off the hook. And then finally we get a lawyer. We go and I spill everything under me with all of their stuff. And they meet too, but it still goes under me. So that way I'll be the one to take the heat for it. And it goes on and goes on through Medicare lawyers, Medicaid, all the government lawyers, other lawyers, their lawyers. I mean, it was huge. And it went on, went on, went on until, of course, I had already gotten into a big fight with the doctor when I saw him coming in. And, his biggest problem was he loved a little thing called cocaine much more than patience. And when he did cocaine, he had no patience. Little twist on words. But I had to make it stop. I couldn't take it anymore. So finally, I just left. I was like, I'm done. We had this little, out the door, and I left. And I, was still talking to the lawyers. They had everything they needed. But then they called me about 2-3 weeks later and said, well, they've all come back with their answer. And they said that, everything that they can find is in the millions and it's not in the billions. So they're not going to pursue it. I think that was my first glimpse at how corrupt the government could be. Not in the millions, or not in the billions. It's only in the millions. So, they did shut down the practice, but he's practicing somewhere else. And it's crazy. But hopefully, we stopped other lives from being taken from this person. So I don't try to dwell on the bad and try and look, for the good. But, from that, and golly, I've turned these 5 questions into a novel, but getting there. So, medical career was done. So at this point in time, I'm like, all right, let's go back to the music business. It's better than medical care. It's better than all the other things that I've been testing out lately. And, but I just didn't want, that whole club scene and the studio scene again. I wanted to come home to my wife, come home to my daughter. That was the main things. So what I started doing is doing, little concerts and CD signings and stuff, had some equipment to go do, live shows, staging, and I started partnering with Warner Brothers, Warner Music Group, and Island Def Jam, Reunion Records. And we're doing all these, from Ludacris, T.I., Rick Ross, Big Boy, all these different people, Seven Dust, all different styles as well. It was just the Island Def Jam. Then we had Reunion and Warner Music that had, all these other, from hardcore, Five Finger Death Punch and all that stuff. But it's funny, we do some of these acoustic in like Best Buy, and I don't know, it's pretty funny. But all the CD signings, that was a lot of fun. But then we would have to be, going to other ones in other states. And also, I got involved with some other companies. I took over Atlanta Production Resource, and then had all the sound equipment that was in this concert venue and bar called Wild West Bar and Grill, which was up in Holly Springs, Georgia. And that place was a riot. Amazing sound system we had in there and lights, and we would have incredible shows. And then after, and it's so funny because, it would start like around 4 or 5 with line dancing, and, DJ would do some line dancing stuff, and then the bands would play. And then in between the band sets, they play country music. And then at the end, boom, straight up dirty hip hop. And everyone got out and started nasty booty shaking. And it was like a whole different venue. And, it was wild. Everyone was having fun. So not going to judge, but it was just completely different crowds, different people. And you'd see like all these people leave, all these people come. And, I don't know, something about that was like, I don't know how long this is going to last. But it did last a while. And then it got to the point where he was even having me DJ too, because it was cheaper than hiring a DJ. So I would go from, running the live sound stuff to all of a sudden doing music. And then all these people are walking up, can you play? And I'm just like, okay. No idea what they said, but to them, it sounded like I played what they wanted. And, but it was late nights, and it was good money. It was all right, but it still is just like this This is my passion. Is this what I just really enjoy? This is going to be my life. And then I get home, I'm tired. And then when I'm, picking my daughter up, take her to school, I'm really tired. And it's just, how much longer do I want to do this? And so I'm trying to do, I hook up with a buddy and Mix Fix, or well, we did some stuff with Mix Fix, but then Mission Possible Productions and doing, sound and stuff over in Auburn. And we did a lot of stuff for a college campus out there, and did all sorts of shows for them. And that was cool, but that would be some nights away. And I was like, I've got to keep something local here to be able to watch my kid grow up. And there's a lot more behind that I'm not going to get into as well. And that's something for, again, another podcast. I'm really trying to keep this short, but it's so hard. Pray for me. But, I started, working some festivals again, just making extra money. But then finally I was like, know what? I'm just going to go back to my first job. Not saying I'm going back to Oklahoma and going to start door to door asking, hey, can I mow your lawn? I'm going to just start a landscape business with what little crap tractors I got around here and go buy, a few other things. And there was this new app that just started called Nextdoor. And I was like, I'll put it on there. I'll name it Dirt Cheap Lawn Care and see what happens. So I did it. Also had another company called Room Service, where it was called Room Service More Than Just a Meal. And we did all sorts of stuff from courier service to, this is stuff that we try to, delegate out. Because again, this is before Grubhub and Postmates and all that stuff. So we were trying to just be like a concierge company, and something kind of like Damn Good Food did in Key West kind of helped give me the idea. But we, wanted to offer more than just a meal, just personal services and stuff. We got everything up. We had this magazine called The Family Planner that had, everything about all the upcoming events, had everything about, where to find your local, direct lines for fire departments, like direct lines for any kind of help service, overdosing, suicide stuff, everything you can imagine. And then calendars of all the events in your area. Plus, we'd make a calendar to where, you kind of plan family events, just something kind of to bring families together. It was a great idea that we came up with, and with another person that he was helping code everything for the website and got everything set to where we're ready to launch. And then sadly, he took his life. I still believe to this day it was due to a medication that they switched him up on. It's a very sad story, but that's what happened with that. So at that point, I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm sticking to dirt cheap lawn care. Do it. That's it. And dedicated to it. And we started getting a great reputation. Started getting, just all these people saying, hey, they're doing such a great job. They're doing everything we asked for, great price. And this is just on Nextdoor. And at that time, Nextdoor wasn't asking you to pay for ads. It was all free. So, that really helped us blow up. And of course, once COVID hit, we really blew up because people were, stuck at home looking at their lawn, looking at projects, then get a stimulus check and want to put that money towards a project. And so, we as a necessary company, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but we were chosen. And so we did it, and we hired more people, and it got really big, and it got really busy to where, I was building decks at the same time as also, doing lawn care. And just really got kind of overwhelming, to be honest. But we were going through so many people because unemployment was so easy to get. And so when people could realize, hey, well, I could go out here and bust my ass, or I could just go claim unemployment and get close to the same amount, I think I'll do that. So that's what people would do. So we would go through people. And that's also where I was dealing with the issues of people just not taking the time to make sure to mix the fuels right, to take care of the equipment. And I mean, I'm just seeing money is going everywhere but in my pocket. But there was one place that I didn't see where it was going, and that all came clear in a divorce. And I'm not going to touch on that anymore in this video either. But that is when I decided, okay, this electric thing is where it's at. I'm going for that. So that way I can, to be honest with you, work more by myself or with just a limited crew and do the same amount of work as if I had a full crew. And that's really what happened. And that again is what inspires me to tell others. I'm not sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I'm telling my competition how to beat me. We don't have competition right now. No one else is doing it. If other people are doing it, they're doing electric lawn care. Maybe someone's doing some solar stuff by now. I keep praying they do. But it's ridiculous that you can harness all the energy you need to keep your batteries fully charged all day long from the freaking sun. Thank you, God. If you're an atheist, thank your toilet, whatever. But thank something, because my goodness, this is nuts. I know I sound silly, but I'm just blown away that more people aren't saying, hey, teach me how to do it. Instead, it's these silly questions of, now, how does it really work? Now, are you really, no, still better. Xmark's still better. Put them together. And you know what? There may be a few things that, an Xmarker still might do something better at, but I bet you there's a lot of other things that these Ego and even the electric versions of some of the others do much better in different ways. I mean, you can control everything on these machines. Touchscreen, control everything. Diagnostics, everything. Unlike sitting there, and trust me, I liked being a mechanic at when I needed to, when I wanted to, really. Not really when I need to, when I wanted to make something work again that didn't. It's still kind of the same, because there's still, if you want to get in and fiddle with some wires and have some fun with fixing something, cool, you can. If it's not under warranty, by all means. But it might be just as cheap just to get another one. Or even cheaper, use the free warranty, because they come with very, very long warranties. But I hope that answered. Let me see if there's any more questions. I think I might have hit them all. Decided to go back to my first job. Okay, nope. Here's the big one. Drum roll, please. Whoop, whoop. How much will someone have to spend if they want to start or transition a lawn care business? Silly, silly people. Okay, different ways of looking at it. First of all, what do you got? Are you already a business that's in landscaping? Do you already have gear? If you do, you know it's worth something. So if you have an Exmark laser, guarantee that Exmark laser, you can sell it and probably get Ego, 42 or 52Z, because they're around the same price. But they come with 3 to 5 year warranties, depending. And again, no maintenance. You're not doing anything but pushing a freaking button. Now, they have already a lot of different charging systems that you can use for your home to charge a bunch of batteries, to be able to take a bunch of batteries with you. But no, charge on the go. You can charge from your alternator, just like EcoFlow sells, your little portable electric generators, and they'll charge your stuff, and you can hook those to an alternator charger. So there's all sorts of ways you can do it. But, that's why we wrote a book on it called Embracing Electric. And then we have the new version that's coming out that's called Solar Electric Lawn Care. And it's pretty much a how-to guide. We teach courses, and we also build the trucks and trailers for you. We now have the big box truck that is running 48-volt system, which pulls in on a regular average about 600 to 800 watts from the sun, even on a cloudy day, because it's UV rays as well. Some of our smaller trailers, they're still pulling in a ton. Some have flexible panels, so you don't even see them on the little 5x8s. And they do, 12 volt or 20 volt systems. But no matter what the size of lawn care business, you can convert it very easily. Much easier if you call and talk to us or hit us up on, Instagram, on off our website's the easiest. Just reach out to us. And we're not trying to sit here and get rich off one person. We want to teach everybody, but of course we want to make money doing it, because my real passion is to let the guys run the business, franchise it off, let the guys that are out there really kicking butt take over, have their own divisions, and go out and teach other people how to do the same. Because it's not an if things are going to transition to battery and to electric, it's when. Because anyone who thinks that it's never going to change, it's always going to be gas, that's not a smart way of thinking. Because you know that the batteries are much more efficient. And then people go, oh, but what about lithium batteries and how much they harm? I have been doing this now we're going on 5 years on some of the batteries, 3 on most, and I have no batteries to throw away. So where am I harming the environment with my batteries that still work? They're not getting buried somewhere. I'm not understanding. Now, if it's Ryobi batteries, things like that, and they won't even take them back at landfills, yeah, okay, I get it. Don't buy cheap shit. That's why we don't get paid from Ego. We do get to test some of their stuff. It's like a bonus, but it's not like they're our sponsor. We're open for sponsors. Anyone can sponsor us. But if you have crap equipment, don't expect for us to stand behind it and say, your stuff's great because you give me money to say so. I won't do that. I want to be transparent. So I talked your ear off. Thanks for listening. If you're still here, I hope so. And send more questions, and I'll try to be a little quicker on the responses and not go off on my. And I also promise to, I can't promise to steer clear of the rabbit holes, but maybe I'll just test them a little bit, or I'll make sure that whatever comes out is spectacular. All right. Thanks for your time. God bless.